the richest country on Earth. The greatest sporting machine the world has ever built. A nation that has produced more Olympic champions, more NBA legends, more Super Bowl spectacles than any other. And yet for over 100 years, this same nation could not conquer the one game the rest of the planet already belonged to. Soccer. Not for lack of trying, not for lack of money. Somewhere between Ellis Island and Hollywood, between Wall Street and the Wild West, America built every sport it touched into an empire. Except this one. So, how does the most powerful sporting nation on the planet lose the only game that matters everywhere else? This isn't really a story about soccer. It's a story about America itself. Picture London, the 1860s. Factory workers pour out of the mills on a Saturday afternoon, and for the first time in history, they have something no generation before them ever had: a few hours of freedom. They fill that freedom with a ball. Simple rules, no equipment. Any patch of dirt becomes a stadium. Soccer spread like a rumor through ports, through railways, through empires. Sailors carried it to Brazil. Colonizers carried it to Africa. It needed no translation. It became the first true global language. But 3,000 miles across the Atlantic, a different story was already being written. America was busy inventing itself. A young nation with no ancient loyalties, no medieval rivalries, no century-old town squares. America didn't need to borrow an identity. It could build one from scratch. So it built baseball, a slow, poetic game for a country still finding its rhythm. It built gridiron football, violent, tactical, built for television before television even existed. And later, basketball, fast, urban, born indoors in a Massachusetts gymnasium in the dead of winter. Each sport became a mirror of the American character. Soccer didn't fit the mirror. While the rest of the world was falling in love with a ball at their feet, America was falling in love with something else entirely. The idea that it didn't have to follow anyone's script. And that decision, made almost by accident, would echo for the next 100 years. Here's what most Americans don't know. Soccer wasn't a stranger on American soil. It arrived early, carried in the suitcases of English, Irish, and German immigrants who stepped off ships in the late 1800s and kept playing the only game they knew how to love. Factory towns from New Jersey to St. Louis built their own leagues. Industrial teams, sponsored by textile mills and steelworks, drew real crowds. In 1930, the United States even reached the semifinals of the very first World Cup, a fact buried so deep in American memory it sounds like a myth. There were professional leagues, there were rivalries, there were stars. And then it all quietly collapsed. The Great Depression drained the sponsorship money. World War II scattered the players and the crowds. And when the dust settled, America rebuilt its sporting world around 3 other games, leaving soccer to fade into church basements and immigrant neighborhoods, a secret hiding in plain sight. The game never truly left America. America simply stopped watching. To understand why soccer struggled to break through, you have to understand what American sports fans were actually taught to love. Big numbers, constant stoppages, a commercial break built into every timeout, a stat for every player, a headline for every moment, a scoreboard that never stops climbing. American sports were built for interruption, perfectly designed for a country that had just invented television advertising. Soccer offered none of that. 90 minutes with barely a whistle. A game that can end 0-0 and still be remembered as a classic. A sport where the emotion isn't in the scoreline, it's in the tension, the build-up, the 15 seconds of silence before a free kick that decides a nation's pride. Around the world, that silence means something. A club isn't a team, it's a neighborhood, a generation, a bloodline passed from grandfather to grandson through decades of shared heartbreak. America, a country built on reinvention, had no bloodline to inherit. No 100-year-old rivalry baked into the sidewalk outside a stadium. It's not that Americans couldn't understand the game. It's that the game demanded a kind of patience and a kind of belonging that American sports culture had never been built to offer. By the late 20th century, America had the money to build anything. Stadiums, broadcast deals, marketing machines, all of it was within reach. But soccer doesn't grow from money. It grows from roots. And America's roots were planted in the wrong soil. Take youth development. In most of the world, a poor kid with talent gets discovered on a street corner and pulled into a club academy for free. His talent alone is the price of admission. In America, the path ran through something else entirely. Pay to play. Club fees, travel costs, tournament dues, a system that quietly filtered out talent by income, not ability. Add to that a college sports system unlike anything else on earth, brilliant for football and basketball, but a strange detour for soccer, where the rest of the world was already fast-tracking teenagers into professional academies while American prospects were still playing a short season between semesters. And when Major League Soccer finally launched in 1996, it arrived not as a bold new football nation, but as an experiment, tiptoeing into a marketplace already crowded with giants. Being rich could buy America stadiums. It could not buy America a soccer culture. That had to be built player by player, one broken system at a time. Then came 1994. The World Cup arrived in the United States for the first time, and something unexpected happened. The stadiums filled. The average attendance shattered records that still stand today. A country that was believed not to care about soccer sold out stadium after stadium to watch the world's biggest sporting event. Out of that tournament, Major League Soccer was born. The beginning was difficult, underfunded, overlooked, and treated by much of the American sports world as a strange experiment. But for the first time, the roots of the game were finally planted in American soil, and year after year, those roots grew deeper. Immigrant communities that had quietly carried their love for soccer for generations finally had a national stage. Youth leagues across American suburbs exploded in popularity. Millions of children grew up playing the game. Television deals expanded, and the world's greatest football stars began seeing America not as a final stop in their careers, but as a place where the sport could truly grow. Then came Lionel Messi. When the greatest player of his generation arrived at Inter Miami, everything changed almost instantly. Stadiums sold out within minutes, jerseys disappeared from stores, and millions of young Americans watched the greatest footballer alive create unforgettable moments on their own soil. But Messi's arrival was not the beginning of America's soccer story. It was the result of decades of change. Then came 2026. The United States hosted the World Cup once again, but this time it was no longer the same country that had welcomed the tournament more than 30 years earlier. America was no longer a curious newcomer trying to understand the world's game. It had become a nation that had spent 3 decades rebuilding its relationship with soccer through immigration, investment, youth development, and a new generation that grew up with the sport as part of its identity. The tournament ended. The trophy was lifted. The world watched. But the greatest story was not only about the team that became champion. It was about a country that had finally changed its relationship with the game. After more than a century of searching, America was no longer asking whether soccer belonged. For 100 years, America chased a game the rest of the world had already mastered. It wasn't a lack of talent. It wasn't a lack of money. It was a country still learning how to fall in love with a sport that demanded patience, roots, and belonging, the very things America had spent its whole history reinventing instead of inheriting. But history has a way of turning. The stadiums are full now. The kids on the street corners are dreaming in a new language. The world is watching a nation that once ignored this game finally start to understand it. So, the question isn't why America failed at soccer anymore. The real question is this: is the next 100 years going to belong to American soccer?